Welcome to the Epic Aesthetic. You're watching high intensity training, and this is Vlog 15. So I've managed to get in the gym this week and film the final episode of Season 2. I hope everyone's been enjoying it so far, and I've appreciated all the strong words of support that those people on the Facebook HOT forums have been giving to me. So I'm kicking off this leg routine tonight with pre-exhaust. Pre-exhaust technique is essentially an isolation exercise followed by a compound movement targeting the same muscle or muscle group. So in the case of leg extensions, they are isolating and targeting the fronts of the thigh, which is the quadricep muscles. And then when I move to the leg press, I'll recruit the fresh hamstring and glute muscles, and they'll help me take my leg muscles to overall failure. The reason I like to do pre-exhaust is essentially I'm very dominant on the posterior chain when I do a leg press or a squat, and what leg extensions enable me to do is to take the front of the thigh to a pre-fatigue state or a failure state, and then I bring in that other exercise, that compound movement with some fresh muscles to really drive it to full and total failure. So that's a technique you might like to try out there if, like me, you find that squatting straight up or doing leg press straight up often is more of a glute mover than it is a quad mover for you. But some people are lucky in this world, such as those with shorter limb lengths, and they'll find that squatting and leg press often gives them a good overall and balanced development. But it is just the case with me that I do need to use a little bit of pre-exhaust to get the proportions I want in my leg muscles. So this week I managed to improve quite significantly on the leg extensions. I increased by 3 or 4 reps, and when I'm doing a 4-2-4 cadence, that kind of improvement is really significant. And I've managed to do it on a restricted calorie diet, so it means that the amount of rest in my routine is adequate. It's helping me progress, and considering I'm training quite late at night, at midnight here, that's a very good sign that I am getting adequate rest and recovery, and that the muscle is given sufficient time to repair. When you go up by big increments like that, it's a really good sign that things are coming together well. You know, if you can improve by 3 or 4 reps every session, well, the amount of times you can increase weight in even just a period of a year can really make significant changes to your development. So if I was able to keep up that pace, which may or may not be possible, in a year's time, you know, I'd probably add a good inch and a half of growth to my legs, which after 10 years of training is quite a fair bit of momentum. So once I reach full failure of this lift, just positive failure, I move immediately across to the leg press machine. So at this stage, my thighs are pretty much hammered. They're in a lot of pain. There's not much left in terms of fresh fibers to keep firing, but my hamstrings and glutes are still quite strong. So they're going to be doing the bulk of the work to lift this weight. So once they get to the top, you'll find I'll be able to recruit the quadricep muscles when performing a negative, but essentially my glutes and hamstrings are doing most of the work to raise the weight. And what this does is it really takes those thigh muscles to really deep levels of inroad, and hopefully that'll stimulate a new round of growth. So I only managed to get six reps here, but it's nothing to panic about. When you do a pre-exhaust combination, you're looking for progress on the first exercise. Obviously, if you improve on the second, it's a bonus. That's good. But often I find that if you really make good inroad into the muscle on the first exercise, it really should compromise the second exercise. It should really make it quite difficult to perform the second exercise, even to the same amount of reps of the previous week. So the fact I went backwards by 2 reps really showed me that first set was really productive, that I really did push to failure. Okay, so the third exercise here is the seated hamstring curl. I'm a big fan of leg exercises that keep you in an upright position. Obviously, back in the day, the lying hamstring curl was really the only machine available for training hamstrings. And it was sort of an awkward thing that had you laying on your belly. Often your head was facing in a downwards direction. And I just find the body doesn't perform so well when it's not positioned in a normal, upright, seated fashion. So I really like this machine because, the blood flow seems normal. You can remain quite lucid during the exercise and just focus on driving those heels down and back underneath the seat. So just a slow and controlled movement, and try and hold for a 2-second pause in the contracted position when your ankles are under the seat. Basically, Mike Mensa, who sort of mainly popularized HIT, said words to the effect that if you can't pause at any position during the stroke of an exercise, it's a sign that you didn't actually get there by your own muscular power, that you used momentum and body English to swing the weight to that position. So when you incorporate things like static holds in the contracted position, it's a good way to prove whether a weight is too heavy or appropriate for you. If, say, I up the weight by 20 kilos, in order to get it into that position, I'd have to really move with a fair bit of speed, and I would be unable to pause for 2 seconds in the contracted position. And that would be telling me that I'm really cheating the weight through the stroke instead of using my muscles to power the weight through the stroke. So for those of you that haven't really used statics before, give them a go. They're a really good way to assess whether a weight's appropriate or not. And that's even for people who use a slightly faster cadence. So, some people do strong positives and slow negatives in HIT training, but the ability to pause in that contracted position is a good way to gauge whether the weight's too heavy or too light, in my opinion. So just 8 to 15 reps to failure, and concentrate on that slow, controlled form. Okay, so training my weak point. Calves really have been a battle for me. They have been improving slowly over the years. And one of the things I've found that's helped them progress is really just to drop the ego in terms of the weight used and really just focus on executing with good form. So slow and controlled, 4 seconds up, 4 seconds down, and really squeezing for 2 seconds in that top position where the calves really get worked quite hard. But it is one of my lagging body parts. I am a little bit embarrassed about showing it on the interwebs, but you're not going to improve things if you don't have some accountability for the development. So soon I'll be going around the world, where I'll finish in Las Vegas to watch the 50th Mr. Olympia. But what I'm more excited about is I'll be training with Markus at his HIT camp. And that's 3 days of training, plus a workout program and a nutrition plan. So I'm going to come back from Vegas armed with a bit of knowledge from one of the leading professionals in the HIT world. And hopefully Markus has some good techniques and hacks that'll help me get my calves up to par with the rest of my body. So that's Markus's challenge. So I hope he's listening, and I hope he's ready. If my calves aren't much bigger in a year's time after following his advice, I'm going to be angry. But I'm sure he'll have some good words of wisdom to get my calves growing. So basically 8 to 15 reps is my rep range on most lower body exercises. I just find that the lower reps are better for safety. A lot of leg exercises really do load up the spine, and especially with form and technique, you can end up using quite heavy weights with leg training, and I find that higher reps allow you to maybe back off that weight without compromising the stimulus of your muscles too much, and that's good for safety. You see a lot of people in the leg press machine and on the squats will rack up really huge amounts of weight. And what can happen that as the muscle fatigues, you can find yourself in awkward positions where your musculature isn't protecting your joints from damage. So it's really about joint health, I feel, with the lower body in terms of rep ranges. But a few other ideas have made me think in those terms, such as, you know, the idea that there's more slow and intermediate twitch fibers in the lower limbs because they've been designed for endurance over our evolution compared to our upper body. But again, for me, I think safety is the main reason I stick to those higher rep ranges. And as you know, in most of the bodybuilding world, slightly higher rep ranges for the legs and the lower body is pretty standard. And so whether that's, you know, based on science or bro science, I'm not really sure, but sometimes, you know, things move in a pattern for a reason. Obviously, a whole massive fitness community over many decades of training have all kind of arrived in the same place regarding higher rep ranges for legs. So give it a go. Sometimes you have to take a punt on things, even if you haven't got quite the amount of information that you usually require to act on. But again, trial and error. It's your body. You have to be accountable. So if you like to do 6 to 10 reps for lower body and that's worked for you, then you keep doing it. If it hasn't worked, switch things up and monitor for change. So I'm throwing in a little bit of rest pause here. Basically, I take about 6 breaths just to clear the lactic acid out of the muscle. And then I just go again, usually getting 2 or 3 reps to failure. So in this video, I've switched things up a bit in terms of production values. I've recently switched to some more high-end video editing programs, and I've started to play around with coloring. So I've tried to make more of a film look, which is a little bit warmer in tone, a little bit richer on the skin tones. So I'm not sure if any of my viewers are particularly experts on video editing or grading, as it's called. Neither am I. But please let me know if, say, you go look back at the first episode of Season 2 and look at this final episode of Season 2, and just let me know what you think of the image quality and of the colouring and the lighting. Let me know if you think it's improved or gone backwards, and that way I can shape things in the future. But again, this is probably my first, you know, half decent play at colouring and grading. So hopefully it'll get better over time. So this is the lower back exercise I use to finish off my leg routine. I've found that training lower back with legs has been, you know, a lot more effective. Obviously, if you're going to use deadlift as your sort of lower back exercise, I probably wouldn't pair it on a leg day. But when I'm using isolation exercises or, you know, unidirectional kind of motion like this, like hyperextensions, I find that throwing it in at the end of a leg session has been a good idea for me. If I train lower back, have 2 days off and then train legs like I normally do, or like I did in my previous split, I just find it interferes with my leg training too much. So I've structured it like this and hopefully it improves. So I hope everyone's enjoyed Season 2, and make sure you like, share and subscribe.